from the world's financial centres. It's World Business Report. Hello and a very warm welcome to World Business Report with me, Alice Baxter. Inflation in China hits the lowest level in 2.5 years. Will that prompt more stimulus from the government? Jaguar Land Rover, a UK success story, but can it stay ahead of rivals? Now, with sluggish growth in Europe and the United States, economists are looking to China to pull the global economy out of the doldrums. And the latest economic report from China is encouraging. Consumer price inflation fell to 1.8% in July. That's the lowest annual rate for 30 months. Well, inflation's been a key concern for Chinese officials. And Chang Li is the Deputy Director for China Forecasting at the Economist Intelligence Unit. And I asked her earlier if the decline in inflation will encourage the government to take measures to boost the economy.
Well, this does give the government plenty of room to consider the cut in both interest rate and reserve requirement ratio. Although I would argue strongly that it's not really necessary for the government to cut down interest rate, because if the government still aims at 7.5 GDP% growth, we're pretty confident that it will be able to happen.
So you say you're not convinced about an interest rate cut, but what sort of measures then might policymakers be considering in order to boost growth? Some investors speculating that we could see the Chinese central bank lowering lenders' reserve requirements again. That would be the fourth cut since November, wouldn't it?
Exactly. I would not exclude the possibility of further reserve requirement ratio cut. And I would like to emphasize that I'm not excluding the possibility of an interest rate cut. I'm just saying that it won't be necessary. The fact is the Chinese government is very risk averse right now. If you think about the global outlook is still very weak. And if you think that this year is a political change of guard, which means the government needs to be extra careful in order to maintain its minimum 7.5% growth. But on top of that, yes, reserve requirement ratio is very likely to happen again. And on top of that, say, if Europe collapses, the government can easily reverse its current very tight control over the property market.
So you mentioned that official growth target of 7.5% for 2012. Obviously, there's been an economic slowdown in China for the last 6 quarters. Is the economy still on track to meet that target?
Absolutely. To start with, I would say that even though 7.5 is the government's target, usually there is very little linkage between what's the actual number versus the government's target. Now, we at the Economist Intelligence Unit is looking at 8.1% growth for 2012. We believe that for China nowadays, even though external demand is very weak, the domestic market is really what's most important right now. So we think that the second quarter is already the bottom of the year and it's going to pick up later half in the year.
The luxury car maker Jaguar Land Rover announces its latest results in the next few hours. Under its Indian owner, Tata Motors, Jaguar Land Rover has become the UK's most profitable car maker, creating some 8,000 new jobs in the last 2 years. But for how long can it keep on growing? Brian Milligan reports.
It's a road car that's far more at home on a racetrack. Jaguar's new F-Type had its first public outing last month, giving a glimpse of the extraordinary speed with which this company continues to grow. But can sales carry on increasing when so many markets are slowing?
One of the company's answers to that is to constantly restock its showrooms with new cars and new technology. This is the Range Rover Evoque, which went on sale last September. Over on the Jaguar side, they're also planning a replacement for the XF here, and a compact car which would compete with the BMW 3 Series.
In fact, the company boasts that it'll produce 40 new models over the next 5 years, possibly including this new Land Rover, and next month an all-new Range Rover. One fact in its favour is that car buyers in recession-hit countries are still moving towards luxury brands.
Even in the UK, for example, a greater share of the overall market is being taken by premium brands than it was 5 years ago. So there's no reason why they can't continue. Whether they can continue at the same rate of growth, of course, is another question.
For the time being, the company is getting plenty of help from its workforce. 1,100 new jobs were announced at this Jaguar plant last month in return for staff agreeing to work Saturdays. But unions say they may not always be so flexible.
We're interested in seeing our members get good skills, good training opportunities, and a good job for the future. But one of the things that we won't do is to take part in a bidding war as to see how low we can go.
So for the moment, the company continues to ride a wave of success. Indeed, to keep up with demand for the Evoque, Land Rover is about to run its factory on Merseyside for 24 hours a day. Brian Milligan, BBC News.
News Corp, the giant media company controlled by Rupert Murdoch, reported a big quarterly loss. Well, for the 3 months to the end of June, it lost almost $1.6 billion. That includes a one-off charge of almost $3 billion to pay for a reorganisation of the business. News Corp plans to split the profitable film and TV business from UK newspapers, which have been caught in a phone hacking scandal. Hewlett-Packard has warned of a huge third-quarter loss after writing down the value of its computer services business. HP made a big push into services 4 years ago when it bought EDS for $14 billion, but it's now cutting the value of that unit by $8 billion. However, putting that charge aside, the company raised its profit forecast for the third quarter. Pilots at American Airlines have rejected a new contract from the company. American Airlines is currently under bankruptcy protection, and a new deal with pilots is essential for the company's revival. Pilots say they want a better deal after making concessions in 2003. Manchester United is due to set the price for its shares later on Thursday. The club selling a 10% stake, which could raise as much as $330 million. But some are saying that Manchester United is being overvalued, particularly as it has hefty debts and is facing competition from rivals with very deep pockets. Well, Sean Hamill is a lecturer at the Burbank Sport Business Centre, and I asked him earlier if the share offering is a good prospect for investors.
Well, I don't think it is at the moment, no. And I think that the share issue, the way it's structured, is not good value for investors. I mean, the problem for Manchester United, well, for the Glazers, is that turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. And at the moment, the debt is so large that the operating profit that is generated goes to pay down the debt. Even with the proposed reduction in debt from this share issue, they will still be left with a substantial debt, and it's unlikely that they're going to enter pre-tax profit in the immediate future.
Okay, let's get a quick flash of the markets now and have a look at how Asia's doing. Well, stocks there, they've risen after reports showed that China's consumer prices climbed at a slower pace for a fourth month, as we were saying earlier, and that the inflation rate eased, adding to hopes that Beijing will do more to stimulate the world's #2 economy. Australian employment also exceeded estimates in July, and that's ahead of a Bank of Japan decision today to refrain from adding stimulus amid signs that the nation's economy is picking up. A quick look now at currencies and the price of oil at the moment, both on the rise, and also a quick flash of the US closing figures, where stock markets were mixed actually after several big consumer goods companies warned that weak demand in Europe was cutting into their revenue. Okay, quick flash ahead at how Europe's looking. That will be opening in about an hour from now. Okay, that's all from me. More business next hour. Don't go away.